Hey, good morning. It's the next episode of these alterations. I'm dressed like a scruff because it's slightly warmer outside today, and in the spring, an old man's thoughts turn lightly to boat building. So I'm alternating my attention, dividing my attention between working in the kilt shop and working in the boat shop. This is how I handle what possibly could be a degree of attention deficit disorder. I'll work on something until I get restless, and then we'll go work on something else until I either come up with a logical place to stop or or just being restless. So here we are. This is the inner apron of the brown Davidson kilt, and I'm pressing the creases out of it. These old Westinghouse or General Electric irons are just the cats behind for tailoring, because it weighs about, I don't know, I should weigh it, 3 or 4 pounds. And as I said elsewhere, it's got the mass, the weight of metal that retains heat. You know, I've gone on about modern clothes irons before and how absolutely useless they are because they're light. Why? Defeats the purpose. And because they're light, they lose their heat really quickly when you're ironing, and it's so frustrating. So this thing, simple as can be, as long as I hear and see the steam, I know I'm okay. And I'm using that pressing cloth so I don't damage the wool cloth. Okay. Now I had chalked where I intend to, my marks to increase the size of the apron. And usually, or wrong, sometimes, often, I will do a white thread over top of that chalk, because of course the iron will press out the wax mark, the chalk mark. But I didn't worry about it this time because I'm just double check my work by doing the measurement a final time after this cloth dries. Now what I haven't done in this so far is use a clapper. This is I think I've mentioned this before, this is a piece of red cedar, western red cedar, that was, from the pencil marks on it, was originally destined to be a kayak paddle. But I don't kayak anymore, so it's now a clapper. So this draws the heat and the moisture, or a great deal of it, out of the cloth. And it's not really terrifically useful in kilt making, because when you're pressing pleats, I mean, there's so many layers of cloth, you're just not going to get enough of the moisture out. You can certainly reduce the heat, but you're not going to get enough of the moisture out so that you can continue working. Because that's the whole point of using a clapper in other tailoring, is by drawing away the heat, drawing away the moisture, you can resume work on the cloth, or at least that's the theory. It's never worked for me, so I don't bother. And I'm thinking about the green Davidson, and the horrible pleating on it. I mean, it looks okay from the outside, but only okay. So I'm starting to think that what I'm going to do with that other kilt is completely tear it down. Remove all of the stitching, press it completely flat, and then remake, recalculate the pleat widths and see if the seam allowance on the inside where they've cut out the back of the fell, to see if the seam allowance is generous enough that I can maybe rejig some of those pleats so that the elements are properly centered. Because remember, we had those two pleats, which we had, the middle two pleats, which we had to treat as one from the way they're sewn up. Possibly, yeah, see if there's enough latitude, there's enough give, as it were, that I can, yeah, see that board feels quite warm. It's not hot, but it feels quite decidedly warm to the touch. So, okay. I will unroll this after I've done the outer apron, because I'm going to be pretty much stuck with leaving it to, oh, there's a seam I haven't unpicked. I always forget about that. Just as well that I have, what are you doing here? I finally relented. Oh, I gotta use my old man zoom. There's no dignity in this. Because this, I mean, I was railing against some choices, some decisions made by this original kilt maker, but I certainly cannot fault that person for their thread choice. I mean, threads, possibly it's a little bit heavier than I would use. It's got to be a Tex, at least it's got to be about a Tex 50, which is what I would normally only use for a buttonhole or a bar tack. But it means that I have to be a little bit more careful when ripping down a seam, because I'm worried that that heavier thread will prove to be stronger than the cloth. And again, I got my nose right up to this because they've done such a wonderful job, and I'm not sarcastic. When I'm sarcastic, you'll definitely know. They've done such a wonderful job at color matching this thread that it's, well, maybe it wouldn't be so hard to see to a younger set of eyes, but my old eyes are going, wait, what? And some of this I can't even see. I'm kind of feeling, because as the pricker, as the ripper passes across, I have to use my teeth to pull this up. There we go. I'll just call these my nonpartisan tweezers. Yeah, that I'm, as the metal of the ripper passes over the yarns, or over the thread in the yarn, the feel of the thread, which might be silk, feel that it's, I guess I'd call it a vibration, but the feel of the yarn passing over this is distinctly different than the feel of the thread. So I'm kind of relying on that. Okay. I had thinking about getting laser surgery for my eyes for years, but I don't know. At this time of life, I'd wind up having to get reading glasses. Okay, there we are. Let's get to this. Wetting down the creases. This little bit here is a bit of a train wreck. I might even just cut it off. I don't know. Okay. I'm not going to bother using the clapper for the rest of these presses because once I've ironed it, I'm pretty much stuck leaving it on the table to dry, which means I can turn my attention to the other kilt while this is drying, and I can also go outside and do some prep work on the next boat that we're building. I'm not sure how much of that I'm going to video, but got a couple of friends, a couple of my crew members coming over today. And we'll be running some yellow cedar through the table saw, which is always a more than one person job. There we are. Yeah. Iron has to heat up just a little bit. It's actually a clear day outside today. It's been slashing down rain this last week. And I think it's predicted to another rainstorm rolling in for the rest of the week. We need it because, you know, if we want drinking water in the summertime, we need rain in the winter. I have to let that thing warm up for, I mean, I've done all of that on one heating, as it were, but I'm going to have to let that thing warm up for a few minutes. So rather than make inane and idle chit-chat, or more inane and idle chit-chat, I can't think of anything else to talk about, I just might shut this off, or shut the camera off, and then do the rest of this by myself. If you're wondering about all that brown paper, like construction paper, some of these are offcuts from patterns, drafting patterns for trousers and trews and coats and waistcoats and such like that. So when we're not using it, we just kind of stick it out of the way. We're setting up an area where they can all hang so they don't have to be rolled up. You can see this thing in the corner. This is a professional quality tailor's iron. It's not as heavy as this one, but it has a water reservoir to hang while you're using it. And that's my my associate Parker McIntosh brought that in. That's his discovery. So I'm not going to interfere with it until he shows me how to use it. I like this system anyway. It works as well as anything else, I think. Okay, that's done. Unplug the iron, hang my pressing cloth, water bottle's put away. I'm gonna have to refill it for next time. The water, the reservoir that I'd used for my pressing is quite there's quite a bit of lint in there picked up, and before I had the entire waste system of the plumbing of this house replaced, I mean, it had lasted 120 odd years and then spectacularly failed. I was reluctant to even pour something that's you know, as many with sediment in it, pour anything down the drain. I was watering the weeds outside the door with it. But given that the money I've spent and that the entire system's new, I think I can pour that down the sink with a clear conscience. Okay. Now, lay this all out so that the outer apron hangs over the bench and can evaporate, and the inner apron, that's quite the radius, isn't it? Okay, the inner apron can also hang over the bench. Get my iron out the way. I know it's not going to damage it, but still. Okay, good. Let's turn the light off, and I'll get on to the next thing.